This is the straightest and most forgiving driver ever made. That is a really, really bold claim. Let's see if it's the truth. Ping G430 Max 10K. Now this is a brand new driver for 2024. It's been an add-on to the very successful Ping G430 range, but now, as I mentioned in the intro, the straightest and most forgiving driver ever made by any manufacturer. So 10K is the big story. 10K MOI, moment of inertia. Off-centered hits, this club twists the least out of any other golf club ever made. There's a number of reasons why that's been achieved. A brand new fixed weight in the back of the G430 head, a carbon fly wraparound top, which has reduced the weight so they can put more weight in the bottom, a larger head profile, so even though this is still 460cc, it's a big footprint behind the golf ball because they've actually made the face quite shallow. This now apparently is the most forgiving golf club ever made. Now it still looks like a G430, just a little bit more, not streamlined. Like the actual sole of the golf club looks like there's less going on. There's still turbulators at the top, which you'll still see in Ping drivers. This carbon crown, as like I say, is extended, almost bled over the edge of the golf club, and this new fixed tungsten weight in the back. Now, it's interesting, this driver, because so far I've already taken this on a recent trip. I've hit it, initial hitting, on-course testing, and we're now here in the HIT studio to do some data-driven testing as well. I want to cover something first though. Well, two things. Number one, the price. You ready for this? This driver, this one individual golf club is priced at £599. £600 for a driver. Now, granted, if it is literally the straightest and most forgiving driver ever made, well then, so be it. But £600 is very, very expensive. And I must admit, it's not as if it's real luxury. Like this head cover that is on a normal G430 and on this, is so kind of thin and nothing to it. I'll tell you what, if you're splashing out that much on a driver, I think you should invest in a nice little RS head cover as well. Check out the link, rickshiels.com, because that is awful head cover. Right, I'm excited about testing this driver in the studio here. Initial testing was very, very promising. When I was on the driving range with this driver, checking a few things: looks, sound and feel. Looks behind the golf ball, yes, the most confident, kind of encouraging looking driver behind the golf ball. The footprint doesn't look like 460, it definitely looks like a bigger driver. It was a few years ago I tested a driver that was 750cc. That obviously was huge and illegal, you couldn't use that. This driver, just because of the footprint, looks so much bigger. I've used a Ping driver for a long time. This looks probably 1.5 times bigger, albeit it's not. Sound-wise and feel-wise. Sound, interesting one with Ping. Over the last few years, they've not made the best sounding drivers in the world, and that's not really changed with this driver. It still sounds very high-pitched. It's not the most satisfying sound in the world, but it doesn't seem to affect feel. Feel is still very solid. When you hit a good one, you know you've hit a good one. And on the driving range, when there was no issues, I was hitting this so unbelievably straight. But that wasn't the real test. Took it to the golf course and wanted to test it out on a very tight fairway shot. I hit 5 shots and I wanted to see how many I could hit on the fairway. It was quite interesting. There's about 3 of them that were almost next to each other, like within yards of each other. I think they might have been the first even 3 shots. I was thinking, hold on, this is ridiculous. Then I leaked one a tiny bit right, not horrendous, and I pulled the next one a tiny bit left. On just off the fairway, not disastrous, but again, for the straightest driver, it didn't quite fill me with the most confidence just yet. And it's not the first brand this year talking about forgiveness. It feels like it's a real trend this year. TaylorMade, the whole reason why the TaylorMade is called QI10, it's quest for inertia of 10K. That's what this is. This has achieved it, and TaylorMade are on the quest to achieve it. That tells you something. Also, the Callaway AI Smoke, the forgiving model, that is very much, again, geared towards forgiveness. So this is kind of the 3rd real big driver launch this year that's all about forgiveness. Right, without further ado, let's get hitting here in the simulator. Now, for future videos on the Hit channel, if you're not subscribed to that, do check it out, link in the description below. I will be testing this driver against other forgiving drivers, and I will be testing this also against the G430 standard as well, to see if this is actually more forgiving than that. But right now, it's a review on its own, here in the studio, on GC Quad, with some Pro V1s. So this driver, I've got this in 9 degrees. You can go up and down in loft by 1.5 degrees, and you can go up and down in loft by 0.6 degrees. I've got this in my actual shaft that I use in my driver, this Tensai 65 gram stiff flex. This is my driver shaft that I've put in it. What's interesting, I normally see the ball fairly high. Even though the footprint of this driver is big, because the head is quite shallow, it actually looks like that ball's teed up a little bit too high, but I'm going to stick with it because that's what I prefer to see. I'm interested and intrigued to see what the data is going to look like. One, from a straightness and forgiving standpoint, but also what does it still do on distance? Because at the moment, I don't have any idea what it does on distance whatsoever. So let's see what it can do in those 3 categories. Okay, that's pretty straight. Very high on that one, but very, very straight. So interested to know what the results are going to be on this with this driver. Don't know what sort of distance I'm going to get. I don't know what spin rates, club head speed. It's all going to be kind of a little bit different, I feel. It's not as if it's a driver just advertised to higher handicappers. It's a driver really that has the most forgiveness for all golfers. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. And I think there's already been rumours of tour pros putting this driver in the bag. So it's a real hard task to cater for so many golfers. But that first one was pretty solid. Let's hit a bunch of shots. That one was interesting. Compared to the first strike, nowhere near as nice, really off the low heel of the club, but still found the fairway. Distance was definitely compromised, but look how straight it was. That was a bad hit, it was a bad strike. I'll take that on the golf course any day. Ooh, first one I pulled a little bit offline. That was actually a really, really good run. Only 5 yards offline, and numbers that I'd be very happy with. Yeah, good drive, that one. Okay, some good shots in there. That last one in particular was really, really good. It's very interesting now. Is it the straightest and most forgiving driver I've ever hit? I can't say it is. I cannot, hand on heart, stand there and say it is. I'm not saying it's not a good driver, it's a very solid, good driver. But I can obviously still hit it a little bit offline. A few lefts, a few tiny rights sneaking in. Let's dive through the numbers, and I've got a theory which I think would fix this driver. For me, carry distance is there. I want to carry the driver, a normal driver, not a super forgiving one, about 280 yards. So to be getting 272 yards out of this driver, happy, very pleased with that. Spin rate, I always expect it to be higher. I thought it was going to be even higher than that. I thought it would be in about 2,600 RPM spin. It's actually 2,300, not bad. Ball speed 155. What was interesting on this particular club head, whether it's the size, not being the most aerodynamic, I couldn't actually swing it that fast. My average club head speed was 106 miles per hour. It's about, at the moment, about 3 to 4 miles per hour slower than I normally get. Hence why there's probably not as much ball speed, hence why there's not as much carry. On the forgiveness and straightness story, like any golf club, a lot of it is down to user error. Like, there's a couple there that I didn't hit particularly great. Some that actually still managed to find the fairway, which I expect with some drivers anyway. Some, if I shut the face a little bit too much, would end up going a bit too much left. Some, if I kept the face open, would curve off a little bit too far right. Is it better than other forgiving drivers? I think more testing is going to be needed. I think, come back to the Hit channel, I'll test this against the most forgiving drivers out this year. Leave a comment. What do you want to see this go up against head to head? But I've got one theory, and I think this would fix this driver. A few years back, I believe TaylorMade made one of the most forgiving drivers ever made. And you wouldn't think TaylorMade would do this. And in fact, it was in a head that was the least forgiving head. But I'll come on to why this particular driver was most forgiving. When the SLDR came out, when it was super, super low spin and everyone was talking about lofting up, TaylorMade brought out a driver that was 16 degrees in loft, but it was the SLDR driver. That driver was one of the most forgiving drivers ever made. Was it the longest? No, but it was the straightest and easiest to hit. For me, when we look at drivers from a forgiveness standpoint, if you added much more loft to this driver, 13, 14, 15 degrees of loft in the same head shape, then, in my opinion, you've got the most forgiving and straightest hitting driver, because loft is your friend when it comes to driver, from forgiveness and straightness. Guys, thanks for watching. More testing needed, and maybe next year's Ping G435 10K Max might just come out with more loft. You've heard it here first. Guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned, lots more to come. We'll see you next time.